I'm going to now introduce our first keynote speaker. Our first keynote speaker is President Mitch Daniels. He's the president of Purdue University, one of the leading research universities in the country. Prior to being appointed the 12th president of Purdue, he had a distinguished career in both public and private sectors. His past positions have included 49th governor of the great state of Indiana, 2 terms, director of the Office of Management and Budget under George W. Bush, president of Eli Lilly's North American Pharmaceutical Operations, CEO of the Hudson Institute, senior advisor to President Reagan, chief of staff to Senator Richard Lugar, among his past positions. President Daniels is known for his innovative and transformational outcomes. So just to name 3 instances, in his first year as governor of the state of Indiana, they balanced their budget without a tax increase. We say, well, we can just cut all our costs, right? But in 2007, under his leadership, Indiana put into effect a plan called Healthy Indiana that provides health care to uninsured Hoosier adults. In 2010, under his leadership, the state and Western Governors University partnered to form WGU Indiana. It's an online competency-based university established to expand higher education here in the state of Indiana. President Daniels won many prestigious awards: the Manhattan Institute's Alexander Hamilton Award, Princeton University's Woodrow Wilson Award, given to the alum of the undergraduate college who achieves exemplary performance, Woodrow Wilson's memorable phase, Princeton in Nation's Service. He's won the Bill Bradley Prize, or the Bradley Prize, excuse me, from the Lynn and Harry Bradley Foundation. I was back on Hoosier basketball again there, yeah. He's the author of a best-selling book, Keeping the Republic, Saving America by Trusting Americans. He's going to talk to us about higher education, about research, and the collaboration of industry and academia, and we hope he'll give us a little bit on infrastructure too from his experience as the governor of the great state of Indiana. So President Daniels, please come up and
having me. We'll try to do it justice. Thank you. Thank you, Wayne. Welcome, one and all. I feel I have the opportunity to extend to you a dual welcome. First, on behalf of our state, to which many of you, I don't know, maybe visitors for the first time. I used to always tell people, you know, Indiana's a land of surprises. South Bend is in the north, North Vernon's in the south. French Lick is not what you were hoping it was. But I can welcome you also on behalf of the university I now serve. I'll just wager there's some Boilermakers in the audience somewhere. I was speaking to another very prestigious construction industry group earlier this year. People came out of the crowd as they do at such events, and I remarked on it, and a non-Purdue alum said, listen, I learned a long time ago, nothing important gets built in this country without at least one Purdue grad involved somewhere. So maybe some of you are, and those who aren't, I'm sure, know a few of our grads. You know, our reputation, we notice this all the time. Many of you have come or are, I guess, are presently serving in international business. There's a concentric increase in the reputation of our school. We've been educating people from all over the world for a long time. We have more Chinese students on the Purdue campus this morning than are in any campus on the world outside of China, for instance. If you were to come on our campus today, 1 in 6 undergraduates would be from a nation other than the U.S., and 1 in 10 would be Chinese. But in any event, our reputation is strong there. Sometimes not as strong as I wish it was at home. On the morning I was announced in this job, that evening rather, a friend in New York went home. His wife is a very informed woman of the world, a long career in the publishing business, knows all kinds of celebrities and so forth. And he said, "Did you hear the news about Mitch?" He said, "No." What, was he going to be president of Purdue? She said, that is just terrible. He said, well, I thought it was kind of cool. What? And she said, his talents will be totally wasted in the chicken business. So we got a little marketing work to do. I didn't expect to find myself here, which is to say, in the job I'm in. I'm thrilled to be there, but it's not necessarily a choice one would have made at this moment in time, because it is fair to say, no news to you, that higher education, for the first time probably in its at least recent history, is a sector under intense pressure. You can't pick up a magazine, a newspaper. You probably can't attend very many conferences without people raising questions, really legitimate questions that were never raised in the United States before, to my knowledge. Are too many kids going to college? Are they studying anything important once they get there? What's a degree mean? If everybody gets a 3-point something, how do we know how do we know who to hire? How do we know who are the real stars? Underneath all this, the question, why does it all cost so darn much? And meanwhile, as has happened in many business sectors, and in fact, it's the essence of capitalism. It's the reason for the prodigious increases in wealth and well-being that free markets have generated. There is always the threat, it's a promise actually, unless you're the threatened entity, of new competition. In this case, there's a lot of discussion about the same online technologies that, to use the $25 word, disintermediated a lot of retailers and many other businesses, now beginning to threaten higher education. The idea is that, and I've said to the people of Purdue, over the next few years, if we're going to still be here or be the sort of university we have been for 150 years, we're going to have to pass the pajamas test. You're luckier than most audiences. I'm not inflicting any slides on you this morning, but if I were, I'd eventually throw up this one. I had it doctored up. I had him go find slightly pudgy, slovenly guy. I said, tell him not to shave for 2 or 3 days. We took a picture of him sitting in his living room in a bathrobe with a PC in front of him, you know, Diet Coke and Cheetos on the table. That's the way some people think education can now be delivered. They say, why would you go pick up and move somewhere for 4 years or more, spend a heck of a lot of money to do it, and be taught exactly the way people have been for centuries? Somebody's standing, you're sitting passively there, somebody's standing on a stage preaching at you, when we can bring the best professors on the planet right into your living room. A friend of mine went to a meeting, this has got to be 4 or 5 years ago now, not yesterday, of a bunch of college professors. He is one. And they brought in one of the gurus of Silicon Valley. I won't name him, but he started one of the biggest, most successful companies. He's up there on your Forbes top something list. Anyway, he comes out and he's got the Silicon Valley look, right? He's got the black turtleneck and the black pants and the black shoes, and the gold chain, I suppose. And he comes out very dramatic, theatrically says, now, first thing I want to tell you is, the biggest problem in higher education is we are not paying the faculty enough money. So, pause. He said, no. I'm talking about a whole lot more money. Yay. He says, the best professors in America should be paid at least $1 million a year. They're tearing the walls down. He said, now, I'm only going to need about 100 of you. So, you know, some of my friends, I mean, I expected to go back to business from whence I had come. You know, some of my friends, well, look, if you're going to do this, you know, why didn't you go run a Borders bookstore? Why didn't you go into, go into the film, the old film camera business? Well, I had my reasons, but chief among them is that I believe, I hope you believe, that an A+ system of higher education has been a tremendous asset for this country, that research-based universities that produce new knowledge, help solve problems, work with companies like yours sometimes to do it, is an enormous asset. We may have slipped as a country in a number of ways, but for the moment at least, we believe, and the world believes, that we have the finest universities of that kind anywhere. And I think it's worth trying to modernize them if necessary, but maintain that advantage. And especially those that produce, the people who generate in gross disproportion the new wealth, jobs, growth on which a successful society, this society, must depend. So we're out to answer the pajamas test at Purdue University. What is right for us? If it proves right, won't necessarily be right for other schools, but let me, in very quick summary, tell you some of the things. I'll leave out many that we're doing, those that I think might be most relevant to this office. Now, just first of all to say, we're trying to attack this cost question. It is unacceptable, I think, to most of us that a young person borrow a lot of money they cannot pay back later on with the product of whatever education they bought with it. Now, Purdue grads, those who actually finish at Purdue, almost never have a debt problem, but one is too many, and it's something that we felt necessary to address. So I asked our Board of Trustees within the first 2 or 3 months I was there to freeze tuition. We did that for the first time in 36 years. We're not different in that respect. The schools you attended almost certainly have an unbroken run, too. We've now frozen it for next year, and we've already announced it'll be frozen for a 3rd year beyond that. I don't know how far we can push it, but we're determined to remain a place where a young person from any income level can, if they can meet our high standards and our ever-rising standards, can afford to go. By the way, we've cut the cost of room and board 5% 2 years in a row. We're working right now on the 3rd category of student expense, which is textbooks, which are, in my opinion, unjustifiably expensive, the way it's been sort of cartelized and run. I'm guessing there's some folks in the audience who have confronted these issues as if not students, at least as parents more recently. So maybe you understand why we think this is so important. Now, strategically, Purdue University this spring, every spring, every commencement, graduates more engineers and technology graduates in absolute numbers than any school. If you, another slide I won't bore you with, arrays the public universities of the United States, left to right, from most to least, I'll say STEM-centric. So you know the term STEM, science, technology, engineering, math. At Purdue, it's STEAM, because agriculture is a high-tech pursuit too, believe me. So, but in any event, taking just the conventional STEM definitions, Purdue University is the 3rd most concentrated today. After some investments we have announced, we will be more so. We will be moving closer. It goes Georgia Tech, UC, I think it's Riverside, and then, or San Diego, sorry, and then it's us. Strategically, we're going to move further that way. We're in the process right now of growing our engineering college by an additional 700 or 800 undergrads, an additional 700 or 800 graduate students, 107 net faculty, and I've already told the college, when that chapter's wrapped up in another couple of years, we have to be ready with phase 2, because we're going to get even bigger. Why? One, it's part of our heritage. We're a land-grant school. When Abe Lincoln and his allies created them, maybe some of you attended them, it's a brilliant innovation. 2 purposes. One, throw open the gates of higher education beyond the elites to the children of a rising society in a new middle class. 2, teach what was most needed. They called it agriculture and the mechanic arts, which quickly came to comprise engineering at its core. So that instruction, engineering's changed, agriculture's changed, but that instruction remains central to us today. And ask yourself, what is it that America and the world needs as much as talented people Wayne talked about? The urgency of qualified people. I hear the same thing with every business I talk to in this job and the last several. Secondly, we think it's our opportunity. Doing more of what you're good at is a pretty good rule in business, I found, and we think it's a pretty good rule here too. And we're pretty good at this, and we intend to get better. And so, in multiple ways, we are determined to contribute to the national need. You know, my friend Norm Augustine led a commission that gets quoted still all the time, 4 or 5 years later. They said America needs at least 10,000 more engineers a year. At Purdue University, after chapter 1 of our expansion, we will already be contributing something like 7 or 8% of that number. We think that's a pretty noble undertaking and one we're going to do as well as we can. Now, that's not all we're doing. We're growing our computer science school, which was the first one ever, just had its 50th anniversary. And thirdly, we're transforming our College of Technology into what will be known as Purdue Polytechnic Institute. Very different, hands-on, even more project-oriented than what we do today. A whole new style of education we believe we're going to give birth to there, and it will be entirely competency-based. You heard that term a minute ago. So what it means is, the way we've done this thing since they set up Oxford a millennium ago is you sit there a certain length of time, then you take a test. You may have been ready to pass that test 3 months ago, but you had to wait around and accumulate credits on a calendar. Well, a lot of people are asking these days, and some of the leaders in education are innovating, saying, why would you do that? As soon as a student is ready and can prove their capability in whatever the discipline is, why don't you let them certify that and move on? And move more quickly, therefore, and by the way, more affordably as they do. Our Polytechnic Institute, we hope, will be the first such an entity on any major campus to do that. Another way in which we hope we're going to address successfully the new challenges to higher ed, another of many ways, is through even more partnerships than we have done before. I'm here to commend you for the work of CII, for really the insight you have as members, that the best answers are not always, and in fact, most often are not found inside a given company, no matter how good it is. I was in the pharmaceutical business, and right through the 90s, we were investing. The percentage of revenue reinvested in R&D is higher in pharmaceuticals even than it is in most information technology companies, and it was, at least it was then. And we had built just blocks from here, and it's one of the great medical research centers anywhere. However, it became more and more clear that we would never succeed as a global enterprise unless we foraged the world for partners. Small biotech firms, researchers in great universities, physicians who were practicing and inventing at the same time to augment what we can do. I got to imagine that it's a little like that in your business too. Anyway, across the spectrum of things we do at Purdue, we've always worked with business. There are a lot of people in academia who thought that for some strange reason think this is the dirty one's hands, We never have had quite that attitude as far as I know at Purdue, and we sure don't today. And a quarter of the record amount of research that we did under contract the fiscal year that just ended was done with corporations and in a few cases foundations. And it was a 39% increase over the year before. So I just wanted you to know, if you've got a problem and that you're not sure you can solve internally, the window's open, and we've got some brilliant people who are eager to work with you. And I know that's true at many, many other schools like ours. So, will higher ed answer all these questions? Will it pass the test? No telling. I don't know if we can. it'll be a race. And if we can't, then frankly, hats off to the intruders, the disruptors, as they like to say these days, who invent something better. I have a suspicion we can do it. It will depend a little bit on the ability of folks who've done it a certain way a long time to learn a new dance. Back at Lilly, I used to like to hang around with the researchers, and our psychiatrists there were not exactly a fun bunch, comedic bunch, but they did have one joke I liked. They said, how many psychiatrists does it take to change a light bulb? The answer is just one, but the bulb has to really want to change, right? So that's what I tell that to my professor friends at Purdue now. If the bulb wants to change, I think we might be able to do this. Let me just close with two very fast comments that are broader. I just can't resist in a fantastic audience like this. I don't have to tell you how much is riding on the success of people in your profession and related, in your companies and related companies. This is a world driven as never before by technology and the need to constantly improve it and refine it, extract the most value from it. And this is why America needs 10,000 at least more engineers and many other closely related professionals. And just to single out two of many areas in which we all must hope, and you must do all you can, not only to provide great service and performance, but I hope great advocacy too. Another thing about land-grant schools, we were assigned what is called engagement. It used to be extension. You take the knowledge that's created in these places out to the farmer, out to the workplace. Well, I hope that in addition to all the things that are part of your day-to-day work, you will also, individually and corporately, accept a responsibility of engagement. You need to be heard from. You are credible about things that we have to make smart public decisions, and it isn't clear we're going to. The two examples I'll just give you were mentioned earlier. Infrastructure is one. You are meeting in a state which is the exception to the rule through a fascinating process and a lot of luck that I won't describe. Indiana hit the jackpot in 2006. We leased a toll road for what turns out to be an exorbitant amount of money. Every dime of it's been plowed back into infrastructure. This is year 8 of a 10-year unbroken string of record investments. We've rebuilt a third of the bridges in this state. Huge highway projects that had been dreamed of for decades are now either real or soon to be. But that is, as I say, the glaring exception. We invest in this country about half what Europe does in public infrastructure. And I don't think of Europe as a vibrant, up-and-coming place, honestly. We've got to do better about this. And you need to be advocates for it, not because it might lead to business, although it might, but because we need this backbone of an economy so that the private sector can flourish. And the other one, I'm sure even everybody in the room understands it better than I do, energy. In business, when you hit a hot product, you've got to invest in it, you've got to maximize it and optimize it and get the most out of it. At least it always seemed that way to me. And fracking, to use sum up what I know is a whole panoply of great technologies and so forth, just in one slang term, is to me is that. It's the best break, as far as I can see, the American economy has gotten since, I don't know, invention of the silicon chip. And we've got to maximize on it. And yet I hear some really, I think, boneheaded opposition to it here and there. And so just as a citizen, I hope that you're helping your fellow citizens understand, demystify, confront the superstition, whatever it happens to be, so that we don't come up short of the promise of this spectacular set of breakthroughs, which engineers, I love to remind everybody, created, that really offers tremendous hope. You know, you're meeting in the most manufacturing-intensive state in America. Manufacturing as a percentage of the Indiana economy or Indiana payrolls or Indiana employment is the highest anywhere. Think what long-term, reliable, affordable energy, natural gas and other forms, means to a state like that. And you know all that it can mean to the places you come from. So I just want to, I couldn't miss the chance to congratulate you. I know many people in this room have been part of this revolution. God bless you, thank you. And press on, and when people try to put obstacles in the path of this great transformation, speak up about it and let people like those of us at Purdue University help you do so. Thank you very much. And my instructions say that I'm to take a few questions, which I'd be delighted to do. I don't know if it's a shout 'em out system. Here's one right in 1, 2. The third row up here. Is there a mic? Okay, I'm sorry. I guess you'll be second, ma'am.
President Daniels, thanks for taking care and shepherding the national treasure that is Purdue University.
Thank you.
My question goes back to your term as governor and the good fortune you had for infrastructure. The rest of us, I'm from Kansas City, we are jealous of what you have accomplished. And we'd love to hear a minute or two of what the key learnings that you had coming from business, the key learnings you had in making this infrastructure transformation.
Yeah. Well, if it is an interesting story. I'll try to tell it concisely. I remember at the end of our first year, it had been described as, in all sorts of metaphors, you know, Hurricane Mitch and so forth. It had been a very busy year. We attacked a lot of things. Wayne mentioned the state was broke, and we got on the way back to what is now one of the only AAA credit ratings in the country. We overhauled the whole economic development, architecture and ethics laws and a dozen other things. And I remember at the end of that session, we had kind of a wrap-up conference, and a reporter said, you know, Governor, man, that was a lot of action, and what's next? And I said, just on reflex, I said, infrastructure. I said, you know, we actually had 2 deficits here. They talk about twin deficits nationally. I said, you know, we've got 2. You know, we had this big mess in the budget. We'll fix that. People said later, how did you do that? My gosh, from here to here. I said, I said, very mysterious. I said, I hate to give away a secret. I said, but, you know, write this down. We spent less money than we took in. I said, but I said, you know, but we've got a capital deficit as well, meaning that we've got this huge backlog, and I'm unaware of a state that isn't in some degree of difficulty the same way. And they said, what are you going to do about it? I said, I don't know, but that's next. And we looked, as I recall, I remember sitting there looking at a list of 30-some things that other states had done or somebody had suggested, you know, index the gas tax or just raise it, or huge surcharges on speeders, all kind of stuff. You add it all up, it wasn't close to the amount of money. We needed at least $3 billion, we thought. Probably should have been more, but that was the number. Anyway, to jump to the end of the story, the only thing I could see that might work was I was aware that around the world, and you'll know this, those of you who come from somewhere else, here's an irony. So we think of ourselves as the great innovators, right, in America? Generally, that's true. We are laggards when it comes to infrastructure and how to finance it, and public-private partnerships are more the rule than the exception in other places except here. It's really bizarre, and it's holding us back. So anyway, I said, we got this toll road, it's losing money. I can't resist telling you about this. So I was out traveling. I'm a no-name first-time candidate. I'm traveling around the state relentlessly, all the small towns, everywhere, personal, you know, 16 months on the road. And we go through this toll booth up near Chicago, the last one before you get to Chicago, and it was 15 cents, 1.5. It's kind of a problem these days, you know, like who's got a nickel, right? So I get elected. I remember asking somebody, I said, we lose money on this toll road, right? Yeah. Why? I said, what's with the 15 cents? I said, what's it cost to collect the toll? Well, it's government. They don't know. So I said, well, why don't you go figure it out? So they come back in 2 or 3 weeks and they go, we think it's 34 cents. I said, what a great business model that is. I said, I'll tell you what, let's do. Fire, you know, somebody's nephew who's sitting there in the toll booth, you know, go to the honor system. Just close the toll booth, put out a cigar box. Somebody will chuck in a quarter once in a while just to be nice. We're already 19 cents ahead. Anyway, we happened to, our timing was very fortuitous. The world of investors, noting that the United States was this undeveloped market for P3s, as they call them, was ready to come in. A lot of people, we had an aggressive auction. The markets, the financial markets were right. This is 2006, remember? And we hit the jackpot. And a lot of memories of those 8 years, but it's hard to top the one when we opened that bid on a Friday afternoon. It said $3.85 billion. That's cash. Not to mention a commitment of several billion to improve this toll road, had no electronic tolling, all that stuff. So anyway, that's where the money came from. The only other point I'd make is that we laid it down as an absolute cardinal rule. What we're doing here is we're monetizing an asset. We have decided we have an underperforming asset. Somewhere your company has one. And if you do that, what you don't do is put the money into this year's income statement, right? Touch things up and so forth. No, that's a no-no. What you do is you reinvest it in something you think will bring a better return. You know, if you lease the back 40, you buy a new combine, you don't, you know, go to Florida. So that's what we did. We managed to protect that money. A lot of people saw that and, you know, had a great idea for this, a great idea for that. No. Got to all go into long-term investment. And it did. Didn't solve all our problems for all time, but that's why this state is in dramatically better shape. Why'd we do it? Mentioned earlier, this is the backbone. Listen, I believe in very limited government. I used to tell people all the time, you'd be amazed how much government you'd never miss. But whether you believe in large or small government, somewhere in there, I think investing in those common assets which make growth and enterprise and business possible belongs in there. And so we took that attitude here in Indiana, and I hope we never change our mind.
You'll consider running for president.
I already am one.
I'm talking about moving east,
Oh,
perhaps.
that.
Your innovation in education is so heartwarming and so inspirational and so transformational. How are you communicating that across our nation? A nation that needs engineering so desperately and needs a change in how we're going to improve our industry.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's an obvious point. I didn't have to communicate it. I mentioned it. The need has been pointed to for a long time, and I do see other schools. Not long after we announced our expansion, I think Texas A&M has embarked on one. A couple other great universities like that are doing it. Let's go. You know, 10,000 is a big number. It's going to take a lot of us. I think a lot more goes into it. I think the demand is there. I think that one thing we've all got to do, I'll bet a lot of the companies here, because so many of the partners we have do this, have programs to encourage younger people. You know, don't be afraid of math, and don't be afraid of science, and you know, they're great opportunities here. And but you know, we do need to fill the pipeline. Right now, at least for our school, the demand is there. And you know, in fact, there's some point we're not out to become solely an engineering or technology university, but But we worry about, looking at the coming demographics, we worry about whether there will be enough young people who arrive at college age prepared for the rigors, which are going up all the time, of filling the positions of leadership that you want. I took a minute on this Polytechnic idea, which we'll be refining for some time, but you know, it's aimed at a little bit at a different stratum. You can think of it as applied engineering, but what we think there, we've been trying to listen to business and others about this crying need for project management and middle management and people who arrive with an orientation to that, ready to work on day one, accustomed to working in teams and so forth. And so we hope we'll be offering a great pathway to great jobs that's a little different than the brilliant research-based engineering that we're teaching to our computer engineers and and all across our spectrum, civil and nuclear and the rest. So, you know, I hope you're encouraging your alma maters in the same way, and I hope you'll, you know, those of you who are, as many as can, will come help us figure it out. One more?
Can you hear me? Yeah. You explained a fantastic ability to maintain or even lower your tuition or the cost for attending the university. How have you been able to do that?
Yeah. Well, did you ever have a year when sales went flat? Anybody here who did, or worse, anybody here who didn't is either a great business person or just signed up with a fortunate company. Well, what happens when, I mean, I was part of, I promise you, a very well-run corporation for a long time. And yet when things are going great, you just don't do the things that you could, and maybe know you should. If the top line is just tremendous, you know, people don't scrutinize the expense accounts quite the way they should, et cetera. So it's a little bit like that. As long as universities were able to dial up tuition every year, they either ignored or postponed or just didn't even think about some of the most basic things. So in a way, drawing that line, you know, what I said to the people of Purdue, and by the way, a university that size is full of every kind of viewpoint in the world. That's one beautiful thing about it. People love to disagree about everything. We had pretty much unanimity when I said, look, how about we try something different? Instead of asking our students and their families to adjust their budget to our spending, why don't we try adjusting our spending to their budget for a year? Now it's going to be 2 and 3. And, you know, I don't think we've done anything yet that I would consider nearly as significant as things that we did every year in state government. I mean, we have not scratched the surface yet. But self-imposing a limit, in this case, the market didn't flatten our top line, we did it voluntarily, has begun to generate a number, at least, of small things and changes. And but there's a lot more that will be necessary to do. I have to just report to you that it hasn't been that hard so far. Yes, we very much moderated increases, but there have been small increases for our staff and faculty. But we're beginning, and we're assembling a team of people who get up every day and think about what can we do today to make this place a little more efficient and therefore a little more affordable for these fantastic young people who deserve the best education we can give them at the lowest price we can manage. Thank you very much.